So I wanted to show you a couple of the problem-solving things that you can do as you're painting your watercolor color wheel. Inevitably, if this is the first time you've ever painted before, sometimes mistakes happen, but there are a couple of good tricks that you can use that will sort of save the day. One of the problems that I notice a lot of students have is that they will accidentally, in flicking their paintbrush, that's pretty drastic, but sometimes you accidentally get splatters on your paper. First off, don't panic, but what you should have next to you is, if you've got a tissue or if you've got a really soft absorbent paper towel, if you're pretty quick and pretty fast, you can dab and really gently lift up most of that color. And that will usually save you from complete disaster. Now you can see here where I've splattered it all over my blue and my green section. It has actually lifted up some of my other color. What I would do if that were me, once I've dabbed it up, I would then let that dry and then mix the correct color again and then do a once over next coat, and that would sort of smooth over and sort of diminish the look of that mistake. So that can be kind of a quick trick, is just being able to really quickly dab. Another problem that sometimes students have is they'll paint a section and then realize later, oh gosh, that's not the color that I wanted it to be. It's maybe too far in one direction, especially when you are mixing your secondary or your tertiary colors. So if that's the case, you can do sometimes what's called glazing. Let's say, for example, I think my violet is too blue and I need for it to be more in the red family. I can mix up another version of the color and go more in one direction or the other. So if it's too blue and I think it needs to have more red mixed into it, I can mix up on my palette using my cool red and blue. Mix up a version of violet that's a little bit more in the direction that I want it to go. And while this is dry, I can put on that second coat of paint, and I can adjust and sort of tone that color using what's called a glaze. One transparent color over top of another transparent color, and I can move that more into the redder version if it ends up with too much blue in it. So glazing is another good technique. Another thing that can sometimes happen when you're painting a color wheel, of course I've got some green splattered here too, but sometimes I see students that need to just completely get rid of a color if you've totally messed it up and it's really not the way that you want. If you rinse your brush out and just have nice fresh clean water on it, and this color is totally wrong, it's a complete mistake, we can sort of fix it and kind of come back from that, so you don't have to panic. If I take just that wet brush and really gently do a little gentle scrub with just a clean wet brush, I'll do that on that whole section. And this is not necessarily the best thing for your paper because it is damaging your surface, but I am scrubbing and lifting up the pigment that's sitting on there. And then again with a tissue or a very soft paper towel, I can lift up a large quantity of that pigment. It won't all go away, but that usually works well enough that you can then repaint it once it's had a chance to dry and repaint it with a fresh color. And that will usually salvage most of the damage, and then that glaze of color over top of this this undercolor wouldn't be very noticeable. So just don't panic. There's usually a way to problem solve and fix mistakes. So I can let that totally dry and then mix a more correct or a better color and layer on over top of it. So 3 quick tricks for if you make mistakes. You can glaze over and shift it a little bit more in one direction or the other. You can you can dab up splatters on accident with paper towel and then repaint a section. Or you can totally lift up a color as much as we can and then let that dry and repaint the correct color if the color is completely wrong. Hope that helps.